Alright, welcome back. In the last video, we got started with Terratest constructing our first program using Terratest, which is written on top of Golang. We learned a bit of how to import the libraries of Terratest, and then we defined a variable. We created a test function as well. We defined a bunch of attributes, and then we defined a variable with wherein all of our directory is, and then we initialized and planned. That was a hello world program. In front of me, you've already see that we have got a bunch of resources with output in it defined. We're going to use all of these output because you know that Terratest rather takes the output as the input variable and then use them to test your code, or rather infrastructure. So if you go back, I could see that I have a bunch of resources created. So if you go over here, we've got a bunch of virtual machines, storage account. What we're going to do is we're going to test our virtual machine, whether it exists or not, whether it has got the right tags or not, and things like that. And that's what we're going to test. I have already got the few of the Terratest documentation open in the GitHub, so we're going to refer to this to and fro. We don't remember all the libraries and the APIs, so we're going to use them as well. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a new file, give it a name as Terratest virtual machine storage. So we're going to do both at once, and then underscore test, which is mandatory.go. Alright, I've added it. I'm going to zoom a little and I'm going to start. So I am going to come over here. So if you go to the Terratest documentation, under the test folder and Azure directory, you've got all the examples. So if you go over here, you see all the examples right over here. But we're going to start off with the VM example. We're going to test few of our VM example. We're going to use all of these libraries. So we're going to import them, and alright, that's been imported. I am going to import, and I'm gonna import all of these libraries. That's been done. Alright, now we're gonna start writing the test. So the first thing first, we define the function first. So we do it as a func, and then we start with the capital letter. That's gonna be test Azure virtual machine. Hit enter, and we're gonna start with the testing attributes, testing.t, and then we're going to make sure that it runs the test parallelly. Alright, and we need a subscription where it for Azure, since it's Azure, so we're going to use the subscription ID where it should look up all its resources, and that's how you define the variable :equals to, and then the subscription variable. If you go back to our Azure resource group, go to the subscription and just pick up the subscription ID, put it over here, and then we define the Terraform option, which we have defined in our last video also. That's going to be Terraform options, variabilize it, equals it, ampersand Terraform dot options, and we define all the necessary fields over here. In this case, it's going to be the Terraform directory, which is going to be the root directory. That's where all of our Terraform folder files exist. If you see over here underneath the Terratest, all of our the files, Terraform files, and the test file exist. Alright, we gonna end up with the comma, and then we are going to close the braces, come out of it. What we're gonna do, we're gonna do a Terraform dot init and plan. We don't want to apply it because we've already got it applied. So in case so Terratest, basically the philosophy of Terratest is to you apply it and destroy it after you have applied the infrastructure. So you apply all the infrastructures to a separate resource group or separate some sort of test environment. You check all the configuration and then you destroy the infrastructure once you have tested it. And then you actually go ahead and get the confidence that, okay, whatever code, whatever config I've written in Terraform, it's actually good to go into the production. So I've already done the apply, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do a plan. It's going to take two attributes, as you can see, testing T and the option. So it's going to be T comma Terraform options, and we're gonna leave it like this. We're gonna come back again, and then we're gonna start writing our actual test. So it's gonna be just, let's do a little bit of formatting. We're gonna start with the function, and the function gonna be test VM and storage. Hit enter. It accepts certain attributes. Now these attributes gonna be, if you go to the documentation, these attributes gonna be certain parameters. So if you go to the storage account, underneath the modules, if you see, if you go to the compute, so these are the actual libraries which Terratest has written. So we want to check the virtual machine. So it accepts certain parameters. These parameters are testing, VM name, resource group, subscription ID, and we're going to define this. So I'm showing you this module or this piece of code because so that you can refer how Terratest has written, how Gruntwork has written all these APIs which we're going to use in the backend. So I'm going to come back to my IDE and I'm going to pass it all the attributes needed. So I would need testing.t, comma, I would need Terraform option dot options, and so that's gonna be, it says auto completed Terraform options, and it takes it as a Terraform option. We're gonna pointerized it options, and then we're gonna give comma, and we're gonna give some more attributes like the subscription ID. So if you're gonna pick it from here, put it right over here, and it is a type of string. So we're gonna define it as a string, hit enter, and we're looking good. We're gonna close the braces and we are going to start. Okay, and then now we're gonna start defining all of our variables. So we want resource group name, and that's going to be come out of the Terraform option. We know how to do that. We do a Terraform dot options, and that's going to be into a, or not options, rather output, because we're gonna pick all of our variables from the output. So we want is, so it accepts certain parameter, that's gonna be T, and then Terraform options, and because we're telling Terraform options because that's where we have defined all of our init and plan. So now we're gonna pick up the key. So we have defined the output as resource group as, this one is the resource group, pick it over here, put it right over here. And similar way, we're gonna define bunch of other variables like virtual machine name, variabilize it, rather than writing everything, we're just gonna copy it just to save the time, and the name's gonna be VM name's going to be VM underscore name, and we're gonna copy it again because we need bunch of more variables. Alright, so it's obviously it's gonna complain. So we want is expected tags. Obviously we're gonna test that. So expected tags gonna be VM tags, and then we probably want storage account as well, but for now we're going to remove it because first we're going to start with the virtual machine. All right. Expected, yep, looks fine. All right, we've done defining the variables. Now we are gonna do is we're gonna start writing our test. It's gonna be assert statements, and there's gonna be a bunch of libraries which we're gonna use. So first, what we're gonna do is we're gonna test the virtual machine size. So we are going to expected VM expected VM size equals to, we're going to use the compute, as you can see, that compute API, and we've already defined the libraries over here. That's the library where the compute is coming from. And what we're gonna do is compute virtual, you get bunch of attributes. All of these are attributes of the compute: virtual machine property, virtual machine hard disk, result, extension, properties, delete, whether you want to update it, client. This plethora of virtual machine updates. We're gonna scale set. We get so anything in terms of virtual machine, you could just use this API and start. You can just probably delete it, update it, modify it. You could do anything. In this case, what we're going to do is we are going to do a virtual machine size types, and we are going to compare that with the Terraform output, and underneath it we're going to define all the variables, all the attributes rather, and we're going to give that, okay, here it is, and we're going to pick up the VM size. So that's gonna be VM underscore size. We've already defined it. Yeah, we're gonna make sure that all of our virtual machine has got this size. This is gonna compare. So this is what the expected is. All right, and the actual VM size is. This is what we expect, right? And the actual VM size is, how are we going to do that? We're going to use the API of Terratest Azure dot get size of virtual machine. So you're getting all the APIs, all the attributes written by Terratest. So Azure is the API, and then you get all the attributes: get size of virtual machine, get tags, get all Azure region, manage, and all those things. So what we're going to do is get size of Azure virtual machine, and it accepts certain parameters like T and then the virtual machine name, which we've already defined over here, and the resource group name, which we've also defined, and where it exists in some sort of subscription. That's the subscription. Alright, so this is the expected size, what we have defined in our code, and this is actually written. And now we're going to do an assert statement. So what we're going to do is assert dot equal. We want both of them to be equal, right? This one needs to be equated with this one. So what we're going to do is we are going to do an assert statement, which is going to be, so we want that the assert statement to be true, which is like T, and we want to match it with the expected VM size with actual VM size. So that's where the all of the VMs size gonna be matched. Now if you run if you try to run this and see, it might end up throwing error because we've not used all of them. So let's probably try to run this. Go test -verbos mode. It's gonna be Terratest virtual machine, hit enter. Alright, these are imported but not used, so we can just comment it for now, random. Obviously we copied it from the grunt work side, we're not using all of them. Alright, looks good. Now if you do that, and the subscription ID is declared but not used. Subscription ID was, expected tags also not used. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna do an expected tags like this, and we are looking good. Yep. Subscription ID, we're gonna copy this, put it right over here. Yep. Now if we run this, subscription ID is declared but not used. I guess we've used it already. Alright, now it's gonna start to run in the backend. If you see that it has started to initialize it because we have defined it initialize and plan. So it's going to initialize and plan, and then from the plan it's going to extract out the output, and then it's going to match up with these output which we have defined. Now it has started to run the plan. You see that it is refreshing the state now. We're going to give it a few seconds and see how it works. Alright, it has passed the test, so it is kind of looking good at the moment. Now we're going to continue to edit our test. We're going to write it down for a very exciting things which we have done it for, I guess, in the chef inspec also. What we're going to do is we're going to test the tags. How do we do it? So we are going to start with the actual VM tags, which are Azure dot get virtual machine get virtual machine. If you go to the grunt work documentation, get virtual machine tags, you see it's right over here. So you could just pick up the function right from here also and put it right over here. It's gonna be same. And then we're gonna define the same attributes again. So it's going to be t and then virtual machine name, because that's where it's going to look up the tags for. It's going to look up the resource group name, and then it's going to use the subscription ID. All right, obviously with a comma. All right, so that's the actual tag, and then what we need is the expected tag. The expected tag is going to be what we actually expect. Expect the tags. Expect the VM tags from our code, which is this one, which we've already defined as expected tag. Yes. So what we're gonna do is now we are going to assert the statement again. Assert dot equal. All right, and then t expected tags with actual VM tags. So that's what it's going to compare. It's going to compare your expected tags, which is defined in your code, with the actual tag which exists in your Azure. So if you go to the Azure resource group and go to your virtual machine, you would see it has got certain tags. It should be equal. Now if you come back again, now if you try to run this, so one of the way you could just instead of all point of creating function, so that you could just define it inside again and again, you could reuse the function again. So we're going to reuse the function again over here, and then we are going to define the attributes, it accept the Terraform options and the subscription ID as well. We've already commented out, so we're going to use this one and pass it right over here. All right, looks good. So now if you try to run this again, it would start obviously with the same process again, initialize it and compare the tags. Obviously it's going to run the virtual machine size test as well, which we have defined. but this time it's gonna run for tags also. So you would have noticed that it didn't throw any error for the subscription ID now, because we've already reused the function. We've called the function again and used the subscription. In the past, all the attributes is needed, and this time it was subscription. So now it's running all the outputs, and now it's gonna run the output. So if you see over here, expected tags have not been equal, because we wanted certain tags which are there, but there are actually more tags which is come out. So yeah, that's how that's how. So we expected it to have cost center, environment, owner, purpose, resources. However, it had more number of tags, and that's how it kind of failed. So that's how you could just use these tests and compare for tags. And all of your tests not gonna pass as well. And this is how the failing test gonna look like, because you expected this one, you actually this one, and you've got certain errors as well. So now let's go ahead and probably try to see if there are a bunch of other tags or other tests which we could run. So we could just use some of the other easy or rather straightforward virtual machine attribute as well. We could just use an assert true statement as well, whether the VM exists also or not. So just want to make sure that none of the VM has been deleted manually. So you could just go to your Terratest libraries into your module, and you could just type in virtual machine exist, and you will see that there is a function for it. So just copy this and just will type in right over here. Wasn't copied. Just going to copy it again. Alright, so virtual machine exist. It's going to accept certain attributes, which is going to be T, and then virtual machine name, and then the resource group name, and the subscription ID. Obviously, we're not going to run all of the tests together, so we would like to write some of the storage test also. So let's probably do that as well. So we're going to start defining the storage variable. Storage account name equals to Terraform, and then output T Terraform options, and then the storage account name variable. Do we have the variable? Do we have it right over here? Yeah. So that's going to be storage account name. Cool. And then we also want to test the storage account kind. So it's going to be storage. What kind of storage account we have? We want to make sure that all of the storage account exist in our Azure account are of the same kind. Terraform dot output T Terraform options, and then storage kind, which is going to be right over here. All right, looks good to me, and that's where we are going to use it. And now we're going to use the storage account variable, whether it exists or not. So it's going to be storage account exist. Define the variable, use the Azure API, and then we are going to use the, so I kind of use it daily, so I don't need to follow the documentation again. So it's going to be storage account exists, and that's going to be take certain attributes. It's going to be the storage account name, resource group, and the subscription ID. Cool. Now we're going to use the assert statement. True. We are going to match this with the whether storage account exists or not, and then we're going to throw up the error that looks like storage account doesn't exist. exist. And we're gonna do it same for our storage kind as well. So we're gonna do it as storage kind. It's gonna be Azure dot get storage account kind, and then we want to use the same attribute, storage account kind, storage account name obviously, and that's then we can all obviously fetch the kind, the subscription ID, and then we're gonna use the assert true statement again, use the storage account kind, which we're going to compare this with, and we're going to compare this with the actual storage. So that's going to be this variable which we have defined over here. We're going to compare this kind with the actual kind. This is our expected one, and this is the actual kind which is pulling out from the Azure. And then obviously the message, which is going to be storage kind mismatch. Alright, looks good. Let's probably try to run this. Alright, this doesn't seem to look fine. Storage account kind seems to have some sort of error. So rather than true, obviously true statement doesn't hold right over here, so it's going to be equal. So now we're going to start running. True statement only holds that whether it exists or not. Now what we're doing is we are equalizing it. We're comparing it. We're comparing this one, which is our expected one, and with this one, which is our actual one. This is what we have defined in our Terraform code. If somebody has manually gone ahead and tried to deleted it or has recreated it or changed it, and then we could use it as a storage kind as well. Alright, so we're getting the test running. It should just fail for the tags, and then it should get succeeded for rest of the other ones. For the sake of just for the demo, we could just show how the expected successful test gonna look like. And once, yeah, it has only failed for the virtual machine tags, rest of them it is successful. Now we could just use for the virtual machine rather resource group also, just like we've covered virtual machine. Now we could just use the resource group. So we could just use the variable exist resource group colon equals to, and then Azure dot resource group resource group exist, and then it's gonna be t resource group name subscription, and then it's going to be assert dot true whether it exists or not. So it's going to be only true exist resource group, and then the message resource group doesn't exist. And what I'm going to do is just to show how the successful test looks like. I am going to comment out this one, and then obviously we didn't use it, so we're going to comment out this one as well, and then we're going to run the test again, and it's going to start the same process, initialize, plan, because that's what we've defined it right over here, that initialize it, plan it, and there run all the tests defined in the function VM test VM and storage. And what we're doing is bunch of variables, and then the storage account variable, and then the virtual machine using the compute and Azure API for Terratest. That's the API from Microsoft, and that's the API from the Terratest. Now it's running all the output. And that's how the test gonna look like. The pass test gonna look like. It has passed for all of the test cases. It ran for 41.92 seconds, and everything was okay. And what we could do is, once you've run the testing for all of these configuration in different environment, that's what Terratest actually recommends you. You could just use something called as defer, and then use the Terraform destroy. Obviously you don't want to do that for your actual environment, but if you're testing something on a different subscription or a different sandbox environment, and then you could just run the destroy. Now if you just run it, what it's going to do is, defer means it's going to run at the end of running everything. So once it has run the init and plan, once it has run the all the tests which we have written over here, then after that it's gonna destroy the infrastructure, because that's what we have defined the defer. Defer means run at the end. So it's gonna, at the end, it's gonna destroy all the infrastructure and give you back the result. So now if you see that it has still again doing the planning phase, it's just refreshing the state and reading the values from the from the output.tf. That's what it is doing. Ran all the outputs. That's the VM size, and it's now destroying. Now if you see that destroy auto approve and import is fault, which means you don't want to take any input, now it's going to start destroying all of the environment, all of the resources. Now it is destroying it. If you see over here, it is starting to destroy the resources for you. So it's going to take a few seconds, and you would see that all of your resources would be wiped out from here. So if we go to the virtual machine resource group and click on refresh, it is going to start destroying all the resources. So it has already destroyed the resource group. It has already started to destroy the virtual machine. Will take a few seconds to delete everything. Alright, so you could see that all the resources are now deleted. We had got 11 resources, and you don't find the resource group as well. Obviously it needs to just refresh. So yeah, nothing exists underneath the resources and not found as well. Come back over here, it destroyed all the resources. So once you've done the testing, just destroy everything and yeah, start fresh. You kind of understand that, okay, my testing have passed and I just want to destroy everything. So now that's what it does. Alright, so that's what we did. The philosophy was to understand the Terratest, how it works for, we understood how it works for virtual machine. We had some of the failing tests as well. Obviously that was intentional. We had got some testing for storage account. We got testing for resource group as well. We use assert statement, and we use the libraries, APIs, and we refer to the documentation of Terratest as well, and the actual test which happens, and then the modules and the libraries where actually the libraries and the APIs are written. I hope this was informative. It's been a quite a longer session. I hope you would now be able to compare Chef and Terratest and kind of choose wisely which tool is appropriate for your organization, your team, basis on the skill sets and requirement. Alright, that's it for this module. Happy testing. Bye bye.